today to share why she pursued a direct-to-consumer model from the start of her company's inception is Daily Harvest CEO, Rachel Drury. In the almost 4 years since its start, Daily Harvest has had hundreds of thousands of consumers, and today she'll walk us through the benefits and pitfalls of this model and what she's learned through this process of growth. Please welcome her to the stage. So, for those folks that have not had Daily Harvest before, let's start by what is Daily Harvest?
Okay, so Daily Harvest is everything that the modern consumer wants in their food. It is convenience, and it is healthy, clean food. So we use the frozen aisle, or frozen technology, as the way to deliver that. We deliver things like ready-to-blend smoothies, ready-to-heat soups, harvest or grain bowls. Everything comes directly delivered to you in little cups, single serve, and you have one step to completion, and everything takes less than 30 seconds to make.
Why from the start? You didn't test out retail, you just went straight direct to consumer.
Yeah.
Did you consider retail? Like, why go this route?
Yeah, so, the original insight behind Daily Harvest, well, let me ask everybody a question. So raise your hand if you're busy. Okay, now keep your hand up if being busy gets in the way of how you aspire to eat. So, for me, knowing that our target demographic is busy.
It's a pretty big target demographic.
It's a very big target demographic, but we knew that our customer doesn't necessarily have the time to meander in the grocery store. Not only that, but the freezer aisle is literally and figuratively a very cold place. Like, you go inside and you see some glass, some fluorescent lighting. You get a little closer. You're like, I can kind of make out the ingredients. And if you open that door, it's going to start fogging, and you're going to be cold, and you're going to feel like people are judging me. I'm wasting energy. Like, it's just very challenged.
It's a deep psychological process.
It is a deep psychological process.
Freezer aisle.
Yes, totally. And you add that on top of the fact that our customer is busy and has forsaken the freezer aisle, because what people associate when they think, or what people think of when they think of the freezer aisle, is things like dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets, frozen pizza. It's not really somewhere people go for health and wellness. So our customer, in addition to being busy, just wasn't shopping there. They were like, there's nothing in here for me. So I knew we had to completely sidestep the freezer aisle to have any chance of success.
You touched upon this sort of misconception consumers have about frozen food. And through your own experience meal prepping, you quickly came to the conclusion that this was the best way to preserve food.
Yeah.
But clearly all consumers don't understand this.
No.
Could you have that conversation and explain to them what is freezing and why it benefits them if you were behind that glass?
No, absolutely not. So, there are a few things. We knew we had to do something different. We knew we had to look different. We knew we had to be able to speak to customers differently. So, one of the early insights, as you're alluding to, was, in my own personal life, I started meal prepping. And through that process was like, what is the difference between this frozen food that I'm buying and I live in Union Square, and there's a farmer's market right there, versus the grocery. And I started researching and saw this one article that just rocked my world. Basically, it was about the fact that your apples can be up to a year and a half old.
I think I read the same article. It was disturbing.
It's so disturbing. And you extrapolate that onto all of the produce that we eat. It's like, what's left by the time you eat it? So I started doing research into frozen, which for me, I am probably the most efficient person you've ever met, like to a fault. It's bizarre. But for me, I was like, if I'm going to be meal prepping, I am sure as hell not going to let any of this go to waste. So I started, I was using frozen stuff and freezing. And what I realized throughout this journey and doing research was that the frozen food that I was getting was higher in nutrient content than the stuff that I was buying at say, Whole Foods. And my mind was blown by this fact. I was like, wait a minute, why don't people know this? Why is there not, why is this not everywhere? Frozen food has higher nutrient content. 47% of fruits and vegetables go to waste every year. Like, we have a serious food waste problem, and frozen solves that. Plus, you can get to people in food deserts, you can get to people all over the country, and you don't have to worry about like it rotting in your fridge. I mean, for me, one of the saddest days is when my raspberries have fuzz. I'm like, oh, what? Like, why did I even buy these? You know, and then, so all of these reasons, you know, you have to be able to go direct to a customer to be able to kind of deprogram them. If you don't go directly to them and target them with the right messaging, if somebody saw one of our products in the freezer aisle, they would have absolutely walked by it and thought that we were ice cream and not understood anything behind it, unless we spent millions and millions and millions of dollars, which frankly we didn't have, to, you know, set up tasting and all this collateral and all of these, you know, point of purchase displays. But you know, it wasn't my expertise. I'm an online marketer, and I knew that I could reach my target customer with the messaging that I wanted them to hear, messaging that I knew they wanted to hear, you know, because it's fascinating.
So you touch upon the fact you were an online marketer, and I was listening to a podcast with you, and you said that part of the reason you left corporate America was because things had to be perfect before they were released. So how does being direct to consumer allow you to, you know, avoid that and avoid falling into that trap?
So, you know, I always give my team the 80-20 rule. I'm like, you know, 20% of things, let's make them fantastic, and 80% of things, let's just get them out. And one of the things I'm really proud of with Daily Harvest is that we've actually built a 6-week innovation cycle, which is like rocket speed in the world of CPG. But it's been so important because it allows us to focus on that, or to have that 80%, where we can put something out there into the world, get really fast feedback, and, you know, continue to iterate. And we consider it, you know, part of our community process. Like, our customers expect when we launch something for it not to be perfect. You know, we have a conversation, we get feedback, and then we build in a cycle where we can use that feedback to further perfect the product as we go.
So how do you get them to buy the product if they expect it not to be perfect? Is it a pricing thing, or do they feel involved? Like,
they feel involved. They
them?
Want to be part of the process, and it's really fun for people.
How do you go about conveying that message? Or do you convey that message, I guess I should say, that like this isn't perfect just yet, or we've made it better? Because I've been to your site and I don't see like new and improved splashed all over.
So when we launch something, well, we don't do new and improved, but when we do it mostly via email communications. So when we communicate with our customers, it's like, hey, we're launching this new thing. We're giving it a try. It's usually to a smaller audience. You know, let us know what you think. Taste it. How is it to make this? Are we delivering on your expectations? You know, and then if the answer is yes, we go in one direction. If the answer is no, we start over again. And you know, every 6 weeks, our products basically change.
Besides the fact that in retail, you know, you have to wait for resets and then to get on shelf. Do you think you can take more risks because you're direct to consumer and you don't have those retail partners? Or your consumers holding you accountable?
Our consumers hold us accountable, but what we've done is, so in order to maximize any risk that we take or to maximize our success, is we've built in this culture of failure. And failing fast. So in the world of technology, if you guys are familiar with like the concept of failing fast, and in a lot of the tech startups use this idea, it's a great philosophy, but it's really hard to do when you have a physical product, exactly as, you know, it can exist in the world of technology. So one of the things that we've done is we've taken that and we've said, okay, how can we take this framework and apply it to a physical product? So what we do is we set up every decision we make as a series of experiments, and they are small experiments. It's like, how can we spend as little money as possible with the biggest you know, return on information as possible? So we do things like, you know, talking to our Facebook community, talking to our Instagram community, talking with customers, you know, A/B testing things just like you would do in a technology company, but with food. And we allow ourselves to the space to get feedback really, really quickly. And if something is a failure, the most important thing in doing this is setting up metrics for success. So you set up a time frame and you set up, what those metrics are going to be. So you can say, okay, this is a success if, for example, 90% of customers give it a thumbs up in 6 weeks. Otherwise, it's a failure, and sometimes it can be heartbreaking. But if you're really, if you're really strict with yourself and you stick to those metrics, you can actually do it.
A lot of direct-to-consumer companies say it's great. We have all this feedback from consumers. That's what you're expressing, But how do you wade through that noise? I mean, it sounds like setting up those metrics is really impossible, but then you're also getting negative feedback as well. This wasn't great, or I want you to fix this. How do you know when there's like collective mass that you actually need to address something versus just being, noise that you need to tune out?
Yeah, so we have a really large data team, and data is kind of your true north. It tells you, unbiasedly what people will do. So it's one thing for somebody to be like, yeah, this tastes delicious. But if they buy it again, then they're actually telling the truth. We do also have the gut feeling trump card though. So, data tells us one thing. It's like, is this, excuse me, is this idea what's wrong, or do we just need to iterate on it? So then, we use common sense and we listen to feedback and we, get all the right people in the room to really have that discussion. Like, did we fail on form? Did we fail on messaging? Did we fail on imagery? Did we fail on taste? Like, what was it? And can we change that? Or is the entire experiment just a dud?
Can you talk through an example with a product that you've maybe iterated on and like what that feedback cycle looked like and how you took it along that path?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal favorite smoothie has been on quite a journey. It's our cacao avocado smoothie. So it started out and it was very green. I was like, as a consumer, I'm like, I want it to taste like a milkshake, but my gosh, I want my 3 servings of greens too, because like, why wouldn't you want to drink a salad that tastes like a milkshake? So, we started out in that direction, and what we realized about our customers is that they really kind of fit into these different taste profiles. So that was the hypothesis early on, but it turned out to be very true, where some people, they like when their food tastes like grass. I'm one of them. And they wear it on their sleeve. And then there are others who are like, I want this to taste really good, and I want to know nothing about what's in it, and it's just about taste. And then there's like another group who wants their cake and they want to eat it too. So this one started out as kind of that last group, but we realized that the customer that really ordered this particular SKU was more of the middle group, and they really just wanted their milkshake. So I gave up my spinach. It still has some in it, but like not as much as I want. We added a little bit of zucchini, which is like a little, which doesn't have as much taste. So we still feel good about the ingredients, but we can really target that customer. And, the process of doing that was, looking at initial uptake, looking at reorder rate, looking at the LTV of customers who order that SKU, and then taking all of that information, having conversations with our best customers, having conversations with our worst customers. Hey, you canceled after ordering this. What happened? Turns out you wanted a milkshake, you wanted it to taste like a Wendy's Frosty, and you tasted the grass. So we fixed it, and then I'd say that process probably took 2 or 3 cycles, and now it's one of our most popular SKUs.
That's amazing. So you have this two-way discussion with your consumers. You kind of have touched on this a little. How does that discussion change depending on the channel? It sounds like you're using a lot of different ways to get feedback and also push your message out about your product.
Yeah, so at Daily Harvest, what I say to people all the time is, you all report to the customer. So I'm like, we don't have a reporting structure. You all report to our customer. So it is every single person in the company's job to make sure that the customer gets what they want. And, we have channel owners. So we have people who own Facebook, we have people who own Instagram, we have people who own product. I mean, you name it, there's an owner for it. And what we do is we get everybody together and we come up with a list of experiments. So when we launch something new, we have a set list of experiments now that we know works. And everybody knows what role they play in it. And then we come back and we communicate and we make a decision.
It seems like it's kind of an advantage there that you're direct to consumer because you don't have the retailer as a consumer as well that you have to make happy.
Absolutely. We have the goal of the retailer is to make customers happy, but they don't always know exactly what the customer is going to want. And we have absolutely the added benefit of having that direct line to our customers and being able to have that conversation in a really productive way.
So that's certainly a way in which being direct to consumer is a benefit. But I imagine it's also hard because, while you're not sitting behind that frosty shelf, you also don't have the benefit of just, hundreds of customers passing you by on a shelf. Maybe in the frozen aisle, it
doesn't happen.
Yeah. So how do you go about attracting customers to you when you're a direct-to-consumer model?
Yeah, so I grew up as a digital marketer. I've been in acquisition marketing for many, many years, and it really comes down to who your customer is and how you speak to them, and connecting those dots. So we actually look at all of our targeting, whether it's through paid social, whether it's through organic, whether it's through blogs or, whatever it is, in the same way. And it's like, how do we test different messages and figure out what works through each channel? So that same test and learn or fail fast methodology that we use in product development, we actually also use throughout the company in all of our targeting. So, we set up experiments and we let them go through their paces, and we basically come back with real data that tells us which way to go, with that personal human touch trump card that says, does this feel on brand? Like, this is the direction that the data pushed us, but is this really who we are?
Does the data sometimes push you in a direction that you feel like isn't on brand?
Oh, yeah. So just an example, data often pushes us towards like diet-based stuff. And, as a brand, we believe very strongly that eating more fruits and vegetables and eating whole, clean foods is our diet. We don't prescribe to paleo or keto or, whatever the hot trend of the moment is. And, that's a tough one for people.
So we were talking, and I said, well, a lot of brands feel like email marketing is the way to go. And you have, really strong feelings on email marketing with direct-to-consumer. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think email is dead. I spend probably 10 minutes every day deleting emails that I don't even open. I just, I see the subject line or even who they're to, and I'm like, no, thank you. I think email marketing is dead. I think you reach customers through Instagram. I think you reach customers through those few places where they do go every day. So, for some people, they open their email in the morning and they can't wait to read the skim. For some people, it's a certain blogger that they really connect with. So, for us and for me, my true belief is you have to go to customers where they're already listening, as opposed to trying to get them to listen to your message. Because in my experience over the past 10 years, email kind of went like this, and then it's kind of gone off of a sheer cliff.
Sticking with the theme of marketing, another kind of fallacy maybe that we hear a lot is, okay, well, e-commerce is so important, and especially if you're direct to consumer, you have to have this packaging that looks beautiful online too. It can't just look great on the shelf, has to look great on your website. You go to your site, there's not 1 ounce of packaging on your website.
Nope.
So what led you to do that? What did you learn about consumers that you realized they don't care what our product looks like?
Yeah,
'cause that's very different than retail.
Totally. So for us, as I said, we wanted to kind of turn everything on its head. We had to totally get people to rethink this $52 billion category that's frozen food that people just associate with crap. Sorry. And for us, it really came down to the food. So when you open one of our cups, that's the experience that we wanted people to have. You open one of our cups and you look down and you see every single whole ingredient. There's nowhere to hide anything. There's nowhere to say like, oh, and this has 16 other ingredients that you really didn't want to eat and you don't even know what they're in there and you can't pronounce them and, So, for us, that insight of when you open the cup, people always having this like, I get it. Like, that's really cool moment. That's the experience that we wanted people to have on our site. So it focuses on the main event, which is our fruits and vegetables.
Sticking with that theme of experience and your messaging, I was listening to this interview and someone said to you, so are you ever going to create a brand for men?
Yeah.
Because you're targeting women, so men must not drink your product.
Yep.
And I was like, what? And your response was, well, lots of women buy it and then their husbands or partners or whoever, sons, drink it.
Totally.
Does being direct to consumer allow you to speak to that person with purchasing power more rather than the end consumer? Because it seems a little different.
Absolutely. So, we focus on the person who makes the purchasing decisions for most households, and that is women who are 25 to 40 years old. And that just is a fact. So, while those are the people who are, entering the credit card information onto the site, it is really, they bring it home, and as you said, it's their kids, it's their significant others. It's really a whole household event. But what direct-to-consumer does allow us to do is to speak to that audience and to share with them the benefits in a way that resonates with them. We know how to find them. We know how to target them, and we know how to have a conversation with them where they're listening. That frozen food isn't what you think it is. And it solves all these problems, not only for them, but for their household.
So no daily harvest for men.
I mean, I don't think it's that feminine, but I don't know.
Well, I want to end with one thing that a lot of folks, may have heard about you recently. You raised a very large Series B of over $40 million. Mm-hmm. And you also had investors like Gwyneth Paltrow, Bobby Flay, Serena Williams, like killer list of investors along with some great VC groups. Yep. When you were going through that process, did you find that being direct to consumer gave you an advantage in kind of breaking through all the CPG noise and attracting this really powerful slate of investors? I
don't know that going direct to consumer did it, but I think what direct to consumer did do for us is allowed us to grow at the pace that we're growing. It allowed us to, have the innovation cycle that we already spoke about. It allowed us to kind of test and learn everything to the point where there's very little that we're kind of like throwing spaghetti on the wall and being like, what sticks? And I think that's what really attracted everybody. It's the power of information that you get from direct to consumer, but not being direct to consumer in and of itself.
Well, the power of the information you've shared with us today is absolutely amazing. I could keep talking forever, but I think we need to welcome Jeff back to the stage. And thank you so much, Rachel.
Great, thank you so much.